The wagon should have arrived 3 days ago. When Caleb Rohr found the wreckage at Dry Creek Crossing, he knew death had visited this place. Splintered wood scattered across the sand, personal belongings torn from their trunks and thrown to the wind, and somewhere in that hell of dust and broken dreams, a woman who had traveled 1,500 miles to marry him lay dying beneath the Wyoming sun. He had 48 hours, maybe less, to find her before the desert claimed what the crash had not finished. This is the story of a mail-order bride who refused to surrender, and the cowboy who tracked her through impossible odds. Stay with me until the end. Comment what city you are watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The heat that summer of 1883 did not just beat down on Red Hollow, Wyoming. It punished. It baked the earth until cracks spiderwebbed across the main street like broken pottery. It withered the sparse grass on the surrounding hills to the color of old rope. It made men move slowly and deliberately, conserving every ounce of moisture their bodies held. And it made Caleb Rohr stand at the depot platform every morning at dawn, scanning the eastern horizon for dust clouds that never came. His daughter Ruby stood beside him most mornings, her small hand tucked into his calloused palm. She was 6 years old with a hair the color of prairie wheat and eyes that saw too much for someone so young. She had learned about loss early. Her mother Sarah had died bringing her into this harsh world, leaving Caleb to raise a daughter alone in a land that showed mercy to neither man nor child. "Papa," Ruby said on the morning of the fourth day, tugging his sleeve. Maybe the lady changed her mind. Caleb's jaw tightened. He folded and unfolded the letter in his pocket. The paper had gone soft from constant handling, the ink fading but still legible. Mara Ellington, 24 years old, from St. Louis, a school teacher's daughter who had answered his advertisement in the matrimonial news, with words that struck something deep in his chest. Something he thought had died long ago. "Dear Mr. Rohr," she had written in her careful, educated script, "I am writing not because I seek adventure or romance, but because I seek purpose. You mention in your advertisement that you have a young daughter who needs a mother's care. I have no children of my own, but I have taught them for 3 years at Miss Peyton's School for Girls. I know their hearts, I know their hurts, and I know that love, real love, is built not in moments of passion, but in the quiet dailiness of showing up day after day, choosing to care. If you will have me, I will come to Wyoming, I will be a mother to Ruby, and I will be a faithful wife to you. I ask for nothing but honesty and a chance to build something lasting." Caleb had read that letter 20 times before he wrote back, 30 times before he sent the money for her passage, and every night since. Lying in his narrow bed in the ranch house he had built with his own hands, he wondered if he was a fool. Men like him, rough, weathered, shaped by wind and work, they did not get second chances. They did not get women like Mara Ellington, with her thoughtful words and obvious education, willing to step off a train into the brutal reality of frontier life. But she had written again and again. Her letters came monthly, then twice a month, then weekly as the departure date approached. She told him about her favorite books, Austen and Dickens, though she confessed a weakness for dime novels she probably should not admit to. She asked careful questions about Ruby's temperament, what she liked to eat, whether she was shy or bold. She even asked about the ranch, how many head of cattle, what the winters were like, whether the house had glass windows or just shutters. Caleb had answered every question with the same painful honesty. 50 head of cattle give or take, winters that could kill a man who got careless. 2 glass windows in the whole house, both in Ruby's room, because he wanted her to see the sunrise. The truth was all he had to offer, and if it was not enough, better she know now than after she made the journey. But she had written back, "Glass windows for a child's sunrise. That tells me everything I need to know about your heart, Mr. Rohr." That letter had made him believe, just for a moment, that maybe the universe was not entirely cruel. Now, standing on the depot platform with Ruby's small hand in his and the sun climbing toward another day of merciless heat, Caleb felt belief crumbling like the parched earth beneath his boots. "She did not change her mind, baby girl," Caleb said quietly. "The coach is late, that is all." But 4 days late was not late. 4 days late was disaster. The depot manager came out of his office wiping sweat from his forehead with a gray handkerchief. His name was Hoskins, a grizzled man with tobacco-stained whiskers and rheumy eyes. "Caleb," he said, his voice carrying the weight of bad news, "you should head home. The midday stage is not coming either. I just got word." "Word from where?" "Telegraph from Buffalo Creek. Line trouble east of there. No coaches getting through until they clear whatever's blocking the road." Caleb's gut twisted. "What kind of trouble?" Hoskins shrugged. "Could be anything. Rock slide, flash flood, Indians. Though that is not likely anymore." He paused, reading something in Caleb's expression. "Your bride coming in on one of those coaches. Was supposed to be here Monday. Today is Friday, son. That is 4 days. I know what day it is." Hoskins studied him a moment longer, then spat a stream of tobacco juice into the dust. "I am sure she is fine. Probably held up at a way station somewhere, playing cards and eating tinned peaches until the road clears." Caleb did not answer. He turned to Ruby, who was staring up at him with those knowing eyes. "Come on, sweetheart. Let us get you home." They walked the half-mile to where he had tied his horse, a big bay gelding named Buck. Caleb lifted Ruby into the saddle and swung up behind her, one arm around her narrow shoulders. The town of Red Hollow sprawled behind them. If you could call it a town, 2 saloons, a general store, a blacksmith, the depot, and maybe 30 buildings total, most of them leaning slightly as if tired of fighting the wind. Caleb's ranch lay 7 miles northeast, where Cottonwood Creek cut through a small valley that stayed green even in drought years. It was not much: a main house, a barn, a bunkhouse for the 2 ranch hands he employed seasonally, and a corral that always needed mending. But it was his. He had claimed the land through the Homestead Act, broken his back proving it up, built every structure with timber he had hauled himself from the Medicine Bow Mountains 40 miles south. He had done it all for Ruby, and now maybe for Mara, if she was still alive to see it. That evening, after Ruby had gone to bed, Caleb sat on the porch watching the sun bleed out across the western horizon. The temperature had finally dropped below brutal, and a faint breeze carried the smell of sage and distance. He pulled out Mara's last letter, the one that arrived 2 weeks before her departure. "Dear Caleb, I hope by now I can call you that rather than Mr. Roar. I leave for Wyoming in 6 days. My trunk is packed. My affairs in St. Louis are settled. I find myself nervous in a way I have not been since childhood. But it is a good nervousness, the kind that comes before something important begins. I have been thinking about what it means to choose a life rather than simply accept the one given to you. My father was a kind man, but he believed a woman's path was narrow. Teacher, wife, mother, in that order, within the boundaries of proper society. I love teaching, but I felt myself disappearing into other people's expectations. Your letters have shown me that perhaps in Wyoming, in the wild spaces where society's grip is looser, a woman might build a life on her own terms. I am bringing books for Ruby, Treasure Island and Alice in Wonderland, and I am bringing hope for all of us. See you soon, Caleb. We begin our new story together on June 15th, yours with anticipation. Mara. June 15th had come and gone. It was now June 19th. Something was wrong. Caleb felt it in his bones the way he felt approaching weather. A pressure in the air, a tightness in his chest that preceded storms. He was still sitting there, letter in hand, when he heard the horse coming hard from the direction of town. He stood, hand instinctively moving toward the rifle just inside the door. But he recognized the rider before the man reached the porch. Sam Weaver, one of the younger ranchers who ran cattle 10 miles west. "Caleb," Sam pulled his horse up in a spray of dirt, the animal lathered and heaving. "You need to get to town. Right now." Caleb's heart kicked against his ribs. "Why?" "Stage driver just rode in. Came from Dry Creek Crossing. There has been an accident, bad one." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "How bad?" "Wagon tipped," driver said. Sam hesitated, his young face troubled. Said he got thrown clear. But there were passengers, a couple headed to Buffalo Creek, and a woman traveling alone. "Young woman," he said, "from back east." Caleb did not remember moving, but suddenly he was gripping Sam's stirrups so hard his knuckles had gone white. "Is she alive?" "Driver does not know. He left to get help." "That was 3 days ago, Caleb. He has been walking since. Just made it to Red Hollow an hour past. 3 days in this heat. Trapped at Dry Creek Crossing." which was 20 miles of nothing between 2 more miles of nothing. Ruby, Caleb said, his mind racing. Mary is already on her way to sit with her, Sam said. Mary was Sam's wife, a capable woman who Ruby knew well. I figured you would need to ride out tonight. Caleb looked back at the house, at the window of Ruby's room where a single lamp burned low. He thought about waking her, explaining, but what would he say? I have to go find a woman you have never met, who might already be dead, who might never have been real to begin with. No, he would go. He would find Mara, or find her body, and then he would come home and tell Ruby the truth, whatever that truth turned out to be. Tell Mary I am grateful, Caleb said. Tell her I will be back as soon as I can. You want company. I can ride with you. No, you have got your own stock to worry about. I will manage. Sam nodded, recognizing the tone that said the discussion was over. Good luck, Caleb. I hope you find her breathing. So do I. Within 20 minutes, Caleb had saddled Buck, filled his canteens, packed jerky and hardtack, grabbed rope, a spare rifle, and a medical kit his wife Sarah had assembled years ago. The kit was probably useless. Sarah had known herbs and remedies, things Caleb had never fully understood. But he took it anyway. Hope was better than nothing. He rode back to town in the dark, navigating by starlight and memory. Red Hollow was quiet when he arrived, just a few lights burning in the saloons. He found the stage driver at the doctor's office, a sunburnt wreck of a man named Pete Corman, who Caleb knew slightly. Pete was sitting on the examination table while Doc Harrison treated his blistered feet and sunburned face. Roar, Pete said when Caleb entered, his voice hoarse, scraped raw. Weaver said you would come. Tell me exactly where, Caleb said without preamble. And tell me what you saw. Pete winced as Doc Harrison applied salve to his cracked lips. Dry Creek Crossing. You know it. I know it. Road drops down into the creek bed there. Nothing but rocks and sand. We were coming through just after dawn, trying to beat the worst heat, but the wheels hit a washout I did not see. Back axle snapped. Wagon went over sideways. Pete closed his eyes, remembering. Happened so fast. I got thrown 20 feet, landed in sand, lucky as hell. When I got my breath back and looked around, the couple, the Hendersons, they were shook up but walking, cuts and bruises, nothing serious. But the woman, Mara, Caleb said, her name is Mara Ellington. Pete nodded slowly. She was trapped. One of the roof beams came down on her when the wagon tipped, pinned her legs. The Hendersons and I tried to lift it, but the whole damn wagon was on top of her. We could not shift it. She was conscious then, talking real calm, considering. She said, Pete's voice caught. She said to tell Caleb Roar she was sorry she was going to be late. Caleb's throat closed. He could not speak. I tried to stay. Pete continued. Swear to God I did, but the Hendersons needed water. Needed to get moving or they would die right there. And Miss Ellington. She told me to go, said she would wait, said she would be fine. He looked at Caleb with eyes full of guilt and exhaustion. I left her a canteen. That is all I could do. I told her I would send help. That was 3 days ago. She could still be alive. Doc Harrison said quietly. If she is in shade, if she has been careful with the water. 3 days, Pete interrupted. In this heat, with her legs crushed. He shook his head. I am sorry, Roar. I am so damn sorry. Caleb turned and walked out of the office before he did something he would regret. His hands were shaking. Not with fear, but with a cold, focused rage at the universe's casual cruelty. He had lost Sarah. He had raised Ruby alone, watching her grow up without a mother, carrying that guilt like stones in his pockets. And now, when he had finally allowed himself to hope for something better, the world had reached out and crushed it. Unless she was alive. Unless by some miracle Mara Ellington had held on, he mounted Buck and turned the horse east, toward Dry Creek Crossing, toward whatever waited there in the dark. The ride took 4 hours, navigating rough terrain in starlight. Caleb pushed Buck hard but not recklessly. A lame horse out here was a death sentence. The landscape around him was familiar in the general sense, but alien in specifics. All shadows and shapes that could be anything. Twice he startled antelope from their resting places. Once a coyote paced him for half a mile before veering off into the sage. Caleb's mind would not settle. It kept circling back to Mara's letters. To the quiet intelligence in her words, the careful way she had built trust between them, one paragraph at a time. She had told him about losing her mother to typhoid when she was 14, about stepping into that role for her younger sister, essentially raising the girl while their father retreated into books and grief, about choosing teaching not because it was expected, but because children's minds were gloriously unjaded, still capable of wonder. Sometimes I think wonder is what keeps us human, she had written. The moment we stop being amazed by sunrises, or moved by a child's laugh, or curious about what lies beyond the next hill, that is when we become just machines for surviving. I do not want to just survive, Caleb. I want to live with intention, with purpose, with people I choose and who choose me back. Those words had gutted him in the best way, because that was exactly what he wanted for Ruby. Not just survival, but a life full of wonder and intention and choice, and now Mara might be dead in the desert, having never even met the child she had promised to mother. Dawn was breaking, washing the eastern sky in shades of rose and gold. When Caleb spotted the wreckage, Dry Creek Crossing was well named. The creek bed was nothing but stones and sand this time of year, a 30-foot wide scar cutting through low hills. The stage wagon lay on its side like a broken toy, canvas torn, wheels jutting at wrong angles. Caleb's heart hammered as he rode closer. He could not see anyone moving. No sound but wind and the creak of Buck's saddle. Mara. His voice cracked the silence like a gunshot. Mara Ellington, nothing. He dismounted 20 feet from the wreck, ground-tying Buck, and approached on foot. The sun was rising fast now, temperature already climbing. He could see personal belongings scattered across the sand. A woman's traveling case burst open, dresses tangled with men's shirts, a child's toy, a wooden horse lying on its side. The Hendersons must have had a child. Mara. He circled the wagon looking for what? A body, a miracle. Then he saw the canteen, Pete's canteen, recognizable by the dent in one side. It lay 15 feet from the wagon, empty, tipped on its side in the sand, and beyond it, drag marks. Someone had crawled away from the wreck. Caleb's pulse kicked into overdrive. He followed the marks, reading the story they told. Someone had pulled themselves along using their arms, legs dragging. The marks were 3 days old, partially blown over by wind, but still visible. They led away from the wreck toward a rocky outcropping, maybe 200 yards distant. He ran, no longer caring about conserving energy or water. He ran through sand that grabbed at his boots, over rocks that turned under his weight, following those terrible drag marks that spoke of determination and agony in equal measure. Mara, Mara, can you hear me? Near the rocks, he found a strip of blue cloth caught on a thorn bush. The fabric was quality, well made, the kind a woman from St. Louis might wear for traveling. The drag marks continued around the rocks, and Caleb's lungs burned as he scrambled after them. On the far side, sheltered slightly from the direct sun, he found the fallen beam from the wagon. Someone had somehow managed to drag it here, though God only knew how, and partially beneath it, partially in shadow. Lay a woman's form. Caleb fell to his knees beside her. Mara, Mara, it is Caleb. It is, I am here. She did not move. Her face was turned away from him, dark hair matted with sand and sweat. He could see her dress was torn, her legs bent at angles that made him sick to look at. Her skin was burned by the sun, lips cracked and bleeding. With shaking hands, he touched her throat, feeling for a pulse. And there it was, thready, barely there, but present. She was alive. Thank God. Caleb breathed. Thank God you are alive. Caleb assessed the situation with the practical part of his brain that had kept him alive on this frontier for 15 years. The beam across her legs was not actually pinning her anymore. She had managed to work most of herself free, probably over hours or days. But her legs were definitely broken. Both of them from the look of it. She had somehow dragged herself in this beam 200 yards from the wagon to this meager shade, and then she had collapsed. The strength that must have taken. The sheer will. Caleb lifted the beam off her carefully, then gathered her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, all bones and determination. Her head lolled against his shoulder, and he could feel the terrible heat of fever radiating from her skin. "I have got you," he whispered, standing carefully with her in his arms. "I am taking you somewhere safe. Just hold on a little longer." She made no sound, did not open her eyes, but her breathing changed slightly. Just a hitch that might have been awareness. Caleb carried her back to Buck, moving as quickly as he dared. The horse shied slightly at the strange burden, but steadied when Caleb spoke to him. Getting her into the saddle was awkward and probably painful. He heard her make a small sound, the first noise she had made, but he managed it, then swung up behind her, holding her against his chest. "Where is the nearest shelter?" he asked aloud, thinking. Not Red Hollow. That was 4 hours back, and she needed help now. The Henderson place was 20 miles south, but he did not know the Hendersons well enough to risk it. Then he remembered the old trapper's cabin at Willow Springs, 3 miles northwest. It had been abandoned for years, but it had walls and a roof and a well that probably still held water. It would have to do. He turned Buck toward Willow Springs and touched his heels to the horse's flanks. "Come on, boy, fast as you can without jostling her." Buck seemed to understand. He moved into a smooth ground-eating lope that covered distance without jarring. Caleb held Mara against him, one arm supporting her shoulders, the other steadying her broken legs as much as possible. He could feel her heart beating against his chest, feel the shallow rise and fall of her breathing. "Stay with me," he murmured into her hair. "We are almost there. Just stay with me, Mara. I did not ride 20 miles to lose you now." The cabin appeared through the heat shimmer like a mirage. Weathered wood, sagging slightly but intact. Caleb had been here once years ago, checking on it as part of a sweep for rustlers. The trapper who had built it, a Frenchman named Levesque, had died or moved on, and the place stood empty. Caleb dismounted carefully, lifted Mara down, and kicked open the cabin door. Inside was a single room, maybe 12 by 12, with a stone fireplace, a rough table, 2 chairs, and a bed frame with no mattress, dust thick on everything. But the roof was solid, and when Caleb tested the pump at the sink, water coughed out after a few strokes, rusty at first, then clear. Thank God. He laid Mara on the bed frame, wishing desperately for blankets or a mattress or anything soft. Her fever was raging now. Her skin hot enough to burn. He knew heat stroke when he saw it. He had lost ranch hands to it, seen strong men reduced to confusion and convulsions in hours. Water. She needed water immediately. Caleb pumped frantically, filling a tin cup he found hanging on the wall. He knelt beside her, lifted her head gently, and touched the cup to her lips. "Mara. Mara, you need to drink. Just a little. Come on." Her lips moved slightly. He tilted the cup, letting water trickle into her mouth. Most of it ran down her chin, but she swallowed once. Twice. He kept at it, patient, letting her take sips at her own pace. After what felt like hours but was probably 5 minutes, she had managed maybe a quarter cup. It was a start. He set the cup aside and began working on her injuries. Her dress was ruined, torn and filthy. But he left it for now. Modesty mattered less than survival, but he would preserve what he could. Her legs were definitely broken, both of them below the knee. The left one was worse, bone visible through torn skin. He would need to set them properly. But first he had to get her fever down. Caleb stripped off his shirt, soaked it in cold water from the pump, and began bathing her face, her neck, her arms. The water evaporated almost instantly in the heat, but he kept at it. Pump and ring, over and over. Her skin was so hot it felt almost inhuman. "Come on," he muttered. "No, fight. I know you can fight. You dragged yourself 200 yards with broken legs. You can fight this." Hours passed. The sun climbed to its zenith, turning the cabin into an oven despite the shade. Caleb worked methodically. Cool her skin, give her water, check her breathing, repeat. He found dried herbs hanging from the rafters, leftovers from Levesque's time. Some of them he recognized. Willow bark. Sarah had used that for pain and fever. He boiled water in a pot he found, brewed a bitter tea, managed to get some of it down Mara's throat. By mid-afternoon, her fever had broken slightly, not much, but enough that Caleb felt a small crack in the wall of his fear. That is it, he whispered. Come back. Come back to us, Mara. And then, as the sun began its descent toward evening, her eyes opened. They were gray, stormy gray, like winter sky, and they focused on him with an intensity that nearly stopped his heart. Caleb. Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse and broken. He leaned closer. I am here. You are safe. I found you. Ruby. Just the one word. But it carried everything. Question, concern, fear. She is fine. She is at home with a neighbor. She has been worried about you. Mara's eyes closed again, but this time it looked more like relief than unconsciousness. Late, she whispered. Sorry I am late. Caleb felt something break open in his chest. This woman, half dead from heat stroke and broken bones, was apologizing for being late to her own wedding. You are right on time, he said softly, right exactly on time. Her lips curved in the barest hint of a smile. Then she slipped back into fever sleep. But it was different now. More natural. Less frighteningly deep. Caleb sat back on his heels, suddenly aware that his own body was shaking with exhaustion and relief. He had been operating on pure will for hours, and now that will was crumbling, leaving him wrung out and hollow. But she was alive, against all odds, against logic and probability and the brutal mathematics of desert survival. Mara Ellington was alive. As night fell and the temperature finally dropped to something bearable, Caleb made a fire in the fireplace and boiled more water. He managed to get Mara to drink a little broth he made from beef jerky and some wild onions he found growing near the well. She did not wake fully, but she swallowed when he coaxed her, and that was enough. He sat beside the bed, watching her breathe, occasionally checking her pulse and temperature. The fever was still there, but seemed to be losing its grip. Her body was beginning to fight back. Around midnight, she stirred again. This time her eyes opened fully, and there was consciousness behind them, pain and confusion, but also awareness. Where, she asked. Old Trapper's cabin, about 3 miles from where I found you. Do you remember the accident? She nodded slightly. Wagon tipped. Driver left. Said help was coming. I am sorry it took 3 days. I did not know. You came. Her eyes fixed on his face with an expression he could not quite read. You found me. Of course I did. The words came out rougher than he intended. You are going to be my wife. I was not going to leave you out there. Something shifted in her expression. Legs. He would not lie to her. Broken. Both of them. But I have set broken bones before. Once we get you strong enough, I will splint them properly. You will walk again. It will take time. But you will walk. She processed this silently for a long moment. Then, Ruby. Tell me about Ruby. So Caleb talked. He told her about Ruby's fascination with birds, how she could identify every species that nested near the ranch. He told her about Ruby's habit of making up songs while she did chores. Nonsense rhymes that made Caleb laugh despite himself. He told her how Ruby slept with an old rag doll Sarah had made, how she was brave about spiders but terrified of thunder, how she asked questions constantly about everything. Mara listened, her eyes never leaving his face, and gradually, as he talked, some of the pain lines around her eyes eased. She sounds wonderful, Mara whispered when he finished. She is, and she is going to love you. You do not know that. I know you dragged yourself 200 yards with broken legs because you were too stubborn to die before meeting her. That is all I need to know. Mara's eyes glistened with tears. I am not what you expected. No dowry, no family, nothing to offer but myself. Caleb leaned closer, his voice firm. Listen to me. I did not advertise for a mail-order bride because I wanted money or connections. I did it because Ruby needs a mother and I need a partner. Someone who will choose this life. Choose us. You already did that, Mara. You got on a train in St. Louis and traveled 1,500 miles into the unknown. You survived a wagon crash that should have killed you. You fought through 3 days in hell because you had given your word. He paused, meeting her gray eyes directly. That is what you bring to this marriage. And that is enough. More than enough. The tears slipped down her cheeks. I am scared. Of what? That I will not be good enough. That Ruby will see through me. that you will regret this. Caleb gently wiped the tears away with his thumb. Do you want to be here? Truly, yes. Then you are good enough. The rest we will figure out together. She held his gaze for a long moment, searching for something. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because she finally nodded. Together, she repeated, together, Caleb confirmed. Outside, the Wyoming night stretched vast and dark, full of stars and silence. Inside the cabin by firelight, a man and a woman who had never met face to face before today made promises without words. Promises to fight, to survive, to become the family they had both been searching for. The next morning brought challenges of a different sort. Mara needed to handle certain necessities, and her immobility made everything complicated and embarrassing. But they worked through it with as much dignity as possible. Caleb stepping outside whenever he could to give her privacy. Mara maintaining her composure even when the situation was mortifying. If we can survive this, she said at one particularly awkward moment, we can probably survive anything marriage throws at us. That is the spirit, Caleb agreed, trying not to laugh. By afternoon, he judged her strong enough to attempt setting her bones. He found suitable branches near the well, two sets of reasonably straight willow shoots that would serve as splints. He stripped them of bark and leaves, then returned to find Mara awake and watching the door. I thought perhaps you had reconsidered, she said quietly, decided that a broken bride was not worth the trouble. Caleb knelt beside the bed and met her eyes directly. I am going to say this once and I need you to hear it. You are not trouble. You are not a burden. You are a woman who survived something that would have killed most men. You made it 3 days in conditions that have claimed the lives of experienced frontiersmen. That makes you tougher than half the ranch hand I have ever hired. So no, Mara, I have not reconsidered. And I will not. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears again. I have never been tough. I have always been the bookish one, the careful one, the one who thought too much and acted too little. Then you have been underestimating yourself. He tore strips from his spare shirt to use as binding. Being tough is not about being loud or reckless. It is about doing what needs to be done even when you are terrified. You did that. You are doing it now. I am terrified, she whispered. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. It is people who are not afraid that get themselves killed out here. He positioned the first splint against her right leg. The simpler break. This is going to hurt. Are you ready? She gripped the bed frame, knuckles white. No, but do it anyway. Setting the bone required pressure and precise movement, pulling the leg straight while feeling for the alignment of broken ends. Mara made a sound halfway between a gasp and a scream, biting it off quickly. But Caleb heard it and it cut him. He worked as fast as he dared, getting the bone aligned, then securing the splint firmly with the cloth strips. One down, he said quietly. The left is going to be worse. I have to clean it first. I understand. Her voice shook despite her obvious effort to control it. Infection would kill me as surely as the desert. It will not kill you. I will not let it. Caleb cleaned the wound with boiled water and what was left of his whiskey, trying to be thorough without causing more damage than necessary. Mara's breathing went ragged, quick and shallow, but she did not cry out. When he finally began setting the bone, though, she did scream, a short, sharp sound that she cut off by biting her own hand hard enough to leave marks. I am sorry, Caleb said, working quickly now. I am so damn sorry, Mara, not your fault. She gasped out between breaths. Just finish. He did, securing the second splint and binding it firmly. When he finally stepped back, his hands were shaking and sweat dripped down his face despite the morning coolness still lingering in the cabin. Mara lay very still, breathing hard, tears streaming down her temples into her hair. Is it done? It is done. The worst is over. I should hope so. I would hate to think it gets worse from here. Caleb surprised himself by laughing. A short, exhausted bark of sound. You are going to fit right in out here. Wyoming does not suffer whiners. Noted. She closed her eyes, exhausted by pain. Will I really walk again? Or were you simply being kind last night? You will walk. It will take months, probably. You will need to be patient. Let the bones heal properly. But yes, you will walk. They sat in silence for a moment, the morning light slanting through the window, warming the room, Outside, they could hear birds beginning their day. "Caleb," she said finally, "I need to tell you something before we go any further, before you take me to meet Ruby." He heard the seriousness in her tone and sat in the chair, giving her his full attention. "All right, I was not entirely truthful in my letters. Not dishonest exactly, but not complete truth either." Caleb's gut tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. "I am listening. I told you my father was a school teacher. That was true. I told you my mother died when I was 14. Also true. What I did not tell you was that my father remarried 3 years ago to a woman who had very specific ideas about what her stepdaughter should become. My younger sister Lily, she accommodated, became exactly what Mrs. Eleanor Ellington wanted, mannered, proper, quiet. But I could not, or would not, I'm not sure which." She paused, gathering strength or courage, or both. "There was a man in St. Louis, Theodore Grimby, son of my father's patron, a wealthy man who funded the school. Theodore was persistent in his attentions. When I declined his proposal twice, he became less pleasant about it, started making implications about my character, about my suitability as a teacher, about my father's position at the school. He tried to force you into marriage," Caleb said flatly. "Not in so many words, but yes. The pressure was considerable. My stepmother sided with him naturally. She saw it as an excellent match. My father." Mara's voice went quiet. "My father said nothing, did nothing. And that is when I knew I had to leave. Because if I stayed, eventually the pressure would wear me down, or Theodore would manufacture some scandal that would destroy not just my reputation but my father's livelihood. So I saw your advertisement, and I answered it." She met Caleb's eyes directly. "I am not running from scandal. I have not done anything shameful, but I am running from a man who would not take no for an answer, and a society that would have forced me to marry him anyway. If that makes me unsuitable, if that changes your opinion of me, I would rather know now." Caleb was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and spoke carefully. "Out here, Mara, a person's past matters a hell of a lot less than who they are in the present. Nobody in Red Hollow knows you came from St. Louis unless you tell them. Nobody knows about Theodore Grimby unless you want them to. And speaking personally," he held her gaze, "any man who tries to force a woman into anything deserves to be horsewhipped. You did not run from him. You chose a different life. There is a difference, and it is one I respect." Relief flooded her face so obviously that Caleb realized she had been genuinely afraid he would reject her. "Thank you. Do not thank me for basic decency." The journey back to Red Hollow took 6 hours, moving at a crawl to minimize the jarring. Caleb had fashioned a travois, two long poles with canvas stretched between them that Buck could drag. It was not comfortable, but it was better than trying to ride. Mara bore the preparation without complaint, though he could see pain tightening the corners of her mouth. Caleb stopped frequently to check on her, give her water, make sure the splints had not shifted. Each time she assured him she was fine, though her face grew paler and the lines of pain deeper. They reached the outskirts of town as the sun was setting, painting the dusty street in shades of gold and amber. People came out to stare. Word had spread about the accident, and the sight of Caleb Rohr returning with a woman on a travois was news. But Caleb did not stop in town. He headed straight for his ranch, for home, where Ruby waited, where their new life would begin. Sam Weaver's wife Mary must have seen them coming because she had Ruby ready on the porch. The little girl's eyes went wide when she saw the travois, and she started to run forward before Mary caught her arm. "Careful, sweetheart," Caleb called out. "Miss Mara hurt her legs. She cannot jump around yet." Ruby approached slowly, her eyes fixed on Mara's face. She stopped a few feet away, suddenly shy. Mara smiled despite her exhaustion and pain. "Hello, Ruby. I have been looking forward to meeting you for such a long time." "You are the lady from the letters," Ruby said softly. I am sorry I am arriving in such an undignified fashion. I had planned to make a much better first impression." Ruby stepped closer, examining Mara with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. "Papa said you got hurt real bad, but you are here now. That is what matters." Something in Mara's expression crumbled just for a second before she got it under control. Yes, I am here now. Ruby looked at her father. Is she staying, Papa? For real. Caleb dismounted and lifted Ruby up, holding her close. If she will have us, both of us, would that be all right with you? Ruby studied Mara again, this time with an intensity that seemed far too old for 6 years. Then she nodded slowly. I think she is brave. Anyone who gets hurt that bad and still smiles must be brave. And brave people should stay. Then it is settled, Mara said quietly. I am staying. Mary helped them get Mara inside and settled in the bedroom. Caleb's room, since it was on the ground floor. Doc Harrison arrived within the hour, summoned by someone who had seen them pass through town. He examined Mara's legs, his weathered face expressionless. You set these? He asked Caleb. Best I could. Not bad at all. The left one is concerning. That wound could still turn bad, but if it does not, she should heal up fine. Months, though, maybe 6 before she is walking steady. I understand, Mara said from the bed. Doc Harrison looked at her with something like respect. You are a tough one. Most folks would not have made it 3 days out there, so I have been told. Mara glanced at Caleb. I am beginning to believe it might be true. After everyone left, Caleb helped Mara with another dose of willow bark tea, then sat beside the bed as darkness fell outside. This is your room, Mara said. Where will you sleep? Ruby's room has 2 beds. I will take the spare one. Caleb, she caught his hand. We are getting married soon, I hope. This is going to be our room, our bed. You do not have to exile yourself. You need rest. You need space to heal. I need to feel like this is real, like I am not just some charity case you are accommodating. Her gray eyes held his. Please stay. We do not have to do anything except sleep, but I want to know you are here. So Caleb stayed, lying carefully on top of the blankets while Mara slept beneath them. He listened to her breathing even out, watched her face relax into genuine rest, and somewhere in the dark hours before dawn, he finally let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to make this work. The mail-order bride had arrived, battered and broken, but alive, and together they would build something worth surviving for. The next few days fell into a pattern. Caleb tended to Mara's needs in the morning, changed her bandages, helped her with necessities that they both pretended were less mortifying than they actually were. Ruby visited constantly, bringing flowers she had picked, asking endless questions, gradually growing more comfortable. In the afternoons, when Mara was strongest, she began reading to Ruby from Treasure Island, and Caleb would listen from the doorway, watching his daughter's face light up with adventure. But it was not all smooth. Pain kept Mara awake at nights, and Caleb would hear her trying to stifle groans so as not to wake him. The wound on her left leg looked angry and inflamed despite his careful cleaning, and he worried about infection taking hold. And there were moments when Mara's spirits would crash, when she turned her face to the wall and refused to talk, overwhelmed by helplessness and pain. On the 4th day, Sam Weaver and his wife Mary came to visit, bringing food and well wishes. Other neighbors followed. Mrs. Chen from the general store, even old Hoskins from the depot. But not everyone who came had kindness in mind. On the 5th day, 3 women from town arrived together. Mrs. Gertrude Vale, wife of the bank manager, Mrs. Patricia Summers, whose husband owned the largest spread in the county, and Miss Constance Hart, the school teacher who had held her position for 20 years and guarded it jealously. Caleb met them on the porch, Ruby at his side. Mr. Rohr, Mrs. Vale said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. We have come to welcome your fiancé and to offer our assistance in this difficult time. There was something in her tone that put Caleb's back up immediately. That is kind of you. Mara is resting at the moment. Oh, we would not dream of disturbing her rest. Mrs. Summers cut in. We simply thought, given the circumstances, you might need guidance on how to proceed appropriately. Appropriately, Caleb repeated flatly. Well, yes. Miss Hart stepped forward, her thin face pinched with disapproval. It is highly irregular, Mr. Rohr. An unmarried woman living in your home, even given her injuries. People will talk. They are talking. Let them talk. But think of Ruby, Mrs. Vale said, putting a hand on Ruby's shoulder. Ruby immediately stepped away from the touch. A child needs to be raised in a proper environment, with proper examples. Caleb felt his temper rising. But before he could respond, a voice came from inside the house. I may be bedridden, but I am not deaf. The women turned to see Mara in the doorway to the bedroom, leaning heavily on the doorframe. She must have dragged herself there, and the effort had clearly cost her. Her face was pale and sweat beaded on her forehead. But her expression was composed, and her voice was steady. If you have concerns about my presence in this house, Mara continued, then address them to me directly, not to Caleb, not in front of his daughter. Mrs. Vale recovered first, arranging her face into a smile. Miss Ellington, we are simply trying to help. Are you? Because it sounds rather more like judgment disguised as assistance. Mara's gray eyes were cool. Let me clarify the situation for you. I am Caleb's fiancé. We will be married as soon as arrangements can be made. My injuries have complicated timing, but not intention. If that troubles your sense of propriety, I suggest you take it up with the universe that arranged for the wagon crash, not with the man who saved my life. Now, see here, Mrs. Summers began. No, you see here. Mara's voice sharpened. I spent 3 days dying in the desert because a wheel broke at the wrong moment. I have 2 broken legs that will take months to heal. I am in constant pain. And frankly, I have neither the energy nor the inclination to care what the ladies of Red Hollow think of my living arrangements. If you have come to help, then help. If you have come to gossip and judge, then the door's right there. Silence fell on the porch. Ruby's eyes were huge. Caleb was fighting a smile. Miss Hart drew herself up indignantly. Well, I can see we are not wanted here. Come, ladies. We clearly made a mistake thinking our assistance would be welcome. Clearly. Mara agreed pleasantly. The 3 women swept off the porch and down the path to their buggy with as much dignity as they could muster. When they were gone, Mara's composure crumbled. She swayed, and Caleb was at her side instantly, catching her before she fell. That was incredibly stupid, he said, but there was admiration in his voice. You should not be on your feet at all. I know, but I could not let them talk about you that way. About us. She leaned heavily against him. Was I too harsh? You were perfect. He lifted her, carefully, carrying her back to the bed. Though you probably just made enemies of the 3 biggest gossips in town. Then I will have to live with that. Mara settled back against the pillows with a grimace. I will not let people imply there is anything improper happening here. I will not let Ruby hear that kind of talk. Ruby appeared in the doorway, her eyes shining. That was amazing. You made them go away. I may have been a bit rude, Mara admitted. They were rude first, Ruby declared. You were just honest, from the mouths of babes, Caleb murmured. The peaceful morning a week later shattered when someone knocked hard on the front door. Caleb answered it with obvious reluctance. A young woman stood there, wringing her hands, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Chen, Caleb said. The wife of the general store owner. Slow down, tell me what happened. It is my husband, she sobbed. He went to check the fence line this morning. His horse came back without him. I found him at Willow Springs. He is hurt bad, Mr. Rohr. Fell off his horse, hit his head. I tried to wake him, but I cannot, and I do not know what to do. And Doc Harrison has gone to Buffalo Creek for 2 days, and I am so scared. All right, Mrs. Chen. Let me get my horse. I will go with you right now. But what if he dies before we get back? What if I did something wrong moving him to shade? What if, Mrs. Chen? Mara's voice cut through the panic from the bedroom doorway. All eyes turned to her, leaning heavily with Ruby propping her up. Listen to me. Did your husband have any bleeding from his head? Any blood in his ears or nose? Mrs. Chen blinked, thrown by the question. No, I do not think so. Just a lump on his forehead. Is he breathing steadily, not gasping or irregular? Steadily, yes, he will not wake up. That is good. That means his skull probably is not fractured badly. The not waking up is concerning. But if you got him to shade and his breathing is steady, you bought him time. Mara's mind was racing, pulling up information from medical books her mother had loved. Caleb, you need to check his pupils when you get there. If one is much larger than the other, that is bad. And then means pressure on the brain. If they are the same size and responding to light, that is better. Caleb stared at her. How do you know this? My mother wanted to be a nurse before she married. She had medical texts. I read them. Mara turned back to Mrs. Chen. Keep him still. Do not move him more than necessary. Do not try to pour water down his throat if he is unconscious. He could choke. Just keep him cool and wait for him to wake naturally. And Mrs. Chen, people wake up from head injuries all the time. Try not to panic. Mrs. Chen was nodding frantically. Thank you, Mrs. Rohr. I did not know what to do. I was so scared. You did exactly right coming for help. Now go with Caleb. He will take care of everything. Caleb came back near noon, looking tired but relieved. Chen is going to be fine. Woke up about an hour after I got there, confused and nauseous but awake. Your advice was good, Mara. The pupils were equal. No fracture that I could see. Thank God. Mrs. Chen wanted me to thank you again, she said. He paused, a strange expression crossing his face. She said she is going to tell everyone in town how the new Mrs. Rohr saved her husband's life with her doctoring knowledge. Mara's stomach sank. I did not save anyone. I just remembered some things from a book. It does not matter. That is the story she is telling. And in a town this size, by tomorrow everyone will know about it. Is that a problem? Caleb sat heavily in his chair. I do not know. Could go either way. Either people will respect you for it, or they will say you were showing off, acting above your station. The Vales in their crowd will not like it. The Vales in their crowd can. Mara caught herself, glancing at Ruby, can think whatever they like. The opinions came faster than expected. By evening, Sam Weaver stopped by with news that Mrs. Chen had indeed been talking up Mara's knowledge all over town. By the next morning, 2 different women showed up asking Mara's advice about various ailments. One with a persistent cough, another worried about her pregnant daughter. Mara did her best to help, offering suggestions cautiously, always prefacing with, I am not a doctor, but each person who came left satisfied, and the word spread further. On the 3rd day after the Chen incident, Mrs. Gertrude Vale appeared on the doorstep. Caleb answered the door with obvious reluctance. Mrs. Vale, what can I do for you? I would like to speak with your wife, if I may. Alone. Caleb's expression hardened. Whatever you have to say to Mara can be said with me present. Please, Mr. Rohr, I am not here to cause trouble. I simply wish to speak with her privately. Woman to woman. Something in her tone made Caleb hesitate. He looked back at Mara, questioning. Mara nodded slightly. She could handle Gertrude Vale. I will be in the next room, Caleb said pointedly. If you need me, just call. After he left, Mrs. Vale approached the bed slowly, her usual imperious bearing slightly diminished. She looked older up close, tired around the eyes. Mrs. Rohr, she began formally. I owe you an apology. Mara blinked, caught completely off guard. I beg your pardon. When I came here before with Mrs. Summers and Miss Hart, I was cruel, judgmental. I implied impropriety where there was none, and I did it in front of your stepdaughter. That was wrong of me. I thank you for saying so. Mrs. Vale sat uninvited in the chair beside the bed. The truth is, I was jealous. Is that pathetic? A woman my age, jealous of a mail-order bride. I do not understand. My husband and I have been married 32 years. We have no children. I lost 3 babies before they were born, and after the last one, the doctor said there would be no more. Martin, my husband, he says it does not matter, that I am enough, but I see how he looks at other men's children, the longing he tries to hide. Her voice cracked slightly. And here you come, younger, capable, about to become a mother to Ruby, building the family I always wanted. I hated you for it. Mara did not know what to say. This brutal honesty from a woman who had been so cutting days earlier left her speechless. But then Clara Chen came into the general store yesterday, crying tears of relief because her husband was alive and awake. And it was all because you had known what to tell her, and I realized something. Mrs. Vale met Mara's eyes directly. You are not here to take anything from anyone. You are here to build something, to help. And I was too bitter to see it. Gertrude. Then, I appreciate your honesty, truly, but I am not some paragon. I am just a woman trying to figure out how to be a wife and mother when I can barely move. Off days, I feel like I am failing at everything. But you keep trying it anyway. That is what matters. Gertrude reached into her bag and pulled out a small book. This was my mother's. She was a midwife back in Pennsylvania. It is her journal, remedies, notes on childbirth, things she learned over 40 years of practice, I thought. If you are going to be the person people come to with medical questions, you might find it useful. Mara took the book with trembling hands. The leather cover was worn soft, the pages yellowed. Inside, cramped handwriting detailed everything from poultices for inflammation to signs of difficult labor. It was a treasure. This is too precious. I cannot. You can. You will. Gertrude stood, brushing off her skirt. Consider it a peace offering, and perhaps the beginning of a friendship, if you will have me, despite my terrible first impression. I would like that very much. After Gertrude left, Caleb came back in looking thoroughly confused. What just happened? I think I just made an ally. Mara held up the journal and inherited some knowledge that might actually be useful. Huh, Caleb shook his head. This town. Just when I think I understand it. It surprises me. The wedding took place on a Thursday. Simple and quiet. Just Judge Henry, Ruby, Sam and Mary Weaver, and Doc Harrison as witnesses. Mara wore a blue cotton dress someone had brought. Not a wedding dress, but clean and pretty. Caleb wore his best shirt, the one he saved for town meetings. Do you, Caleb Michael Rohr, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Mara Catherine Ellington, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Mara's voice rang clear. I do. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ruby climbed carefully onto the bed, and Mara wrapped an arm around her. Welcome to our family, Ruby said seriously. Thank you for having me, Mara replied, just as seriously. Not everything was smooth progress. Mara's legs healed slowly, and some days the pain was so intense she could barely think. There were nights when she woke Caleb with her crying, nights when she was short-tempered with Ruby, days when the walls of the bedroom felt like a prison. The worst day came 6 weeks after the wedding. Mara woke to find that the wound on her left leg had reopened slightly during the night, blood soaking through the bandages. The sight of it, the setback after weeks of slow progress, broke something inside her. It is never going to heal, she said flatly when Caleb came to check on her. I am going to be like this forever. It is just a small setback, Doc Harrison said. I do not care what Doc Harrison said. I am so tired, Caleb, so tired of being helpless, of having to ask for help with everything, of being a burden. You are not. Do not. Her voice was sharp. Do not tell me I am not a burden. We both know I am. You cannot work the ranch properly because you are always here tending to me. Ruby cannot have a normal childhood because her new mother is bedridden. I cannot even consummate our marriage because my legs are broken. How is that not a burden? The words hung in the air, brutal and raw. Ruby, standing in the doorway with breakfast, heard everything. Her face crumpled. Ruby, Mara started, but the girl was already running, the plate clattering to the floor. I will go, Caleb said quietly. He left Mara alone with her pain and her shame. She could hear him in Ruby's room, his voice low and comforting. Ruby's sobs, more talking. Eventually silence when Caleb returned. His expression was carefully neutral. She will be all right. She is young. She does not really understand what you meant about consummating. She just knows you are unhappy, and she thinks it is her fault somehow. God. Mara covered her face with her hands. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I did not mean for her to hear. I did not mean any of it. Did you not? Caleb sat down, and for the first time since she had known him, he sounded tired, truly tired. Mara, I know this is hard. I know you are in pain and frustrated and scared, but you cannot take it out on us. Ruby is just a child, and I am doing the best I can. I know. I know you are. Tears streamed down Mara's face. I do not know what is wrong with me. Some days I am fine, and then days like today, I just break, and I say terrible things I do not mean. Then tell Ruby that. Tell her you were hurting and scared and you said something you did not mean. She will forgive you. Children are good at forgiveness. What about you? Do you forgive me? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. I am not angry, just worried. Worried that you are giving up. That the woman who dragged herself through the desert is letting pain win. Maybe she should. Maybe pain deserves to win sometimes. No. Caleb's voice was firm. Pain does not get to win, not in this house, not while I am still standing. He moved to the bed, took her hands in his. Listen to me. You are not a burden. You are my wife. You are Ruby's mother. You are valuable and wanted and needed. Not despite your limitations, but as a complete person who happens to have broken legs right now. Do you understand? I am trying to. Try harder. Because Ruby needs you to be strong. And so do I. Ruby came back into the room slowly, cautiously. Her eyes were red, but she had stopped crying. Mara held out her arms, and after a moment's hesitation, Ruby came to the bed. I am sorry, Mara said, holding the girl close. I said something very unkind. I was hurting and tired, but that is no excuse. You are not a burden. You are a bow. The best part of every day. Do you believe me? Ruby nodded against Mara's shoulder. Are you going to leave when your legs get better? What? No, Ruby, no. Why would you think that? Because you sounded sad, like you did not want to be here anymore. Mara's heart shattered. She pulled back so she could look Ruby in the eyes. I am sad sometimes, and frustrated, but never because of you or your father, only because of my injuries, and even on my saddest days. I want to be here. I want to be your mother. I chose this family, Ruby, and I am not going anywhere. Promise. I promise. Ruby studied her face, looking for lies, then finally relaxed. Okay, I believe you. That evening, after Ruby had finally gone to sleep, Caleb held Mara close. That was hard, he said finally. It was necessary. I scared her. You scared both of us a little. I am sorry, Mara. I think you need to talk to someone. Mary, maybe. Or Gertrude. Someone who understands what it is like to feel trapped by circumstances. What good would talking do? Maybe none. Maybe a lot. But keeping everything inside until it explodes is not working. His voice gentled. I cannot fix this for you. I can set your bones and bring you food and help you move around. But I cannot fix what is happening in here. He touched her forehead gently. You have to do that work yourself, but you do not have to do it alone. Mara caught his hand, held it against her cheek. How did you get so wise? 6 years of single parenthood teaches you things. I will talk to Mary. Or Gertrude. Someone. Good. He stood. I need to check the fence line. Will you be all right for a few hours? I will manage. Caleb. Yeah, thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I am giving up on myself. That is what marriage means. We take turns being strong. He smiled slightly. Today, it is my turn. Tomorrow, it might be yours. The conversation with Mary Weaver came 2 days later, when the woman stopped by with fresh bread and an offer that felt like providence. I heard you had a rough morning the other day, Mary said, settling into the chair beside Mara's bed. Ruby told my Jenny that you were sad. Mara's cheeks flushed. I should not have let her see me like that. Why not? You think children do not know when adults are hurting? Mary shook her head. My Jenny has seen me cry plenty of times, over babies I lost, over hard winters, over my father passing. Did not damage her none fun. Maybe even taught her something about being human. Mary leaned forward. Honey, if you think a marriage is only about what happens in a bed, you have got a lot to learn. My Sam and I went nearly a year after our second was born before we could be intimate again. Women's bodies need time to heal. So do broken bones, I imagine. The casual way Mary discussed it made something loosen in Mara's chest. Did you feel useless during that time? Every single day. I would watch Sam working himself to exhaustion while I could barely climb the stairs without hurting. I would see other women at church standing and socializing while I had to sit because standing too long made me bleed. It was hell, Mara. Pure hell. Mary's voice gentled. But you know what I learned? My worth was not tied to what my body could do. It was tied to who I was. The mother who read to my children. The wife who listened to my husband's worries. The woman who still had thoughts and feelings and value even when she could not do all the physical things expected of her. How did you stop feeling like a burden? I did not. Not completely. Some days I still feel it. Mary's honesty was refreshing, but I started looking for ways I could contribute that did not require a working body. I taught Jenny her letters when she was barely 3. I mended every piece of clothing in the house, even one-handed. I planned menus that would stretch our food supplies. Small things, but they mattered. Mara thought about the garden journal, about the medical advice she had been giving, about the afternoons spent reading to Ruby. Small things, but maybe they did matter. I am scared, Mara admitted. Scared that when my legs finally heal, Caleb will realize he married someone he does not really know. That the crisis brought us together, but ordinary life will tear us apart. Could happen, Mary said pragmatically. Marriage is a gamble, however you start it, but I have seen the way that man looks at you, Mara, like you are water in the desert, like you are the answer to something he did not even know he was asking. That is not crisis talking. That is real. Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and start living the life you have got. That is my advice for what it is worth. That evening, while Mara was reading in bed, Ruby appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. Mara, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Ruby came closer, fidgeting with her nightgown. Would it be all right if I called you Mama? Not all the time if you do not want, but sometimes, because you feel like a mama to me now. The way you took care of my head today, and the way you read to me, and the way you make Papa smile. The words came out in a rush. But I know you are not my real mama, so if you would rather I did not. Ruby, Mara's voice was thick with emotion. I would be honored, so honored. If you want to call me Mama, you absolutely can, even though I already had a mama. Even though you are allowed to have 2 mamas, Ruby. One who gave you life and loved you first, and one who gets to love you now. Mara held out her arms. Come here. Ruby climbed onto the bed carefully, mindful of Mara's legs, and burrowed into her embrace. Mama, she whispered, testing the word. My mama, my daughter, Mara whispered back, and felt something settle into place. Something she had been missing without knowing it. Purpose, belonging, family. The breakthrough in Mara's healing came 3 months after the wedding, on a crisp October morning. She woke to find she could flex her left ankle without the sharp breath-stealing pain that had accompanied every movement. She tried again carefully. Still discomfort, but not agony. Caleb. She shook his shoulder. He had taken to sleeping beside her rather than in the chair, both of them learning to navigate the intimacy of shared space. Caleb, wake up. What is wrong? He was alert instantly. Nothing is wrong. Look. She moved her ankle again, then her toes. The swelling has finally gone down. I can move it. He sat up, examining her leg with careful hands. Doc Harrison said it would be at least 4 months before you could try walking. We should not rush it. I know, but this is progress, real progress. She could not keep the excitement from her voice. By November, she could make it from the bedroom to the kitchen using furniture for support. By December, she could walk outside to the porch, leaning on a crutch but moving under her own power. On Christmas night, after Ruby had fallen asleep, Mara said quietly, Caleb, I think I am ready, if you are, to be properly married. What followed was gentle and careful and sweet, both of them nervous as newlyweds should be, learning each other. When it was over, Mara lay in Caleb's arms, feeling more whole than she had since the accident. I love you, Caleb murmured into her hair. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Good scared or bad scared? Good scared. The kind that comes from having something precious you do not want to lose. You will not lose me. I'm not going anywhere. She kissed his chest right over his heart. I am home, Caleb. Really, truly home. Spring came early that year. Mara had graduated from cane to walking unaided, though she still limped when tired, and probably always would. But she could walk to the garden, could stand at the stove to cook, could run slowly, awkwardly, but actually run when Ruby called for her from the yard. The real test came in late April. When Theodore Grimby arrived in Red Hollow, Caleb came home mid-morning with a grim expression. There is a man in town asking about you. Well-dressed, from back east, says his name is Theodore Grimby, and he is looking for Mara Ellington, claims to be your fiancé. The blood drained from Mara's face. That is impossible. I refused his proposal twice. He is telling people you ran away, that you owe him an explanation. He is staying at the hotel and making quite a scene about the improper woman who abandoned her responsibilities. Fear clawed at Mara's throat, the old terror she had felt in St. Louis. But beneath it, something else stirred. Anger. She had built a life here, a real life, and she would be damned if Theodore Grimby would take it from her. I am going to town, she said, standing. Right now, Mara. No, he does not get to come here and spread lies about me. Not in the town where I live. Not where Ruby might hear them. Her voice was steel. I am going to face him, and I am going to end this. Caleb studied her face, then nodded. Then I am coming with you, so is Ruby. If you want her there, I do. I want him to see what I chose, what I built, the family I have now. They rode into town together, Mara on Buck behind Caleb, Ruby on her pony beside them. People came out to watch, word had spread. Theodore Grimby stood on the porch of the hotel, exactly as she remembered. Handsome in a polished way, well-dressed, confident. When he saw her, his face lit up with false relief. Mara, thank God, I've been so worried. Do not. She dismounted, limping slightly, and walked toward him with her head high. Do not pretend this is about worry. What are you doing here, Theodore? His expression shifted, calculation replacing concern. I came to bring you home. Your father is beside himself. Your stepmother is distraught. You left without a word. I left with many words. In a letter I placed on my father's desk. Did he not share it with you? Theodore's jaw tightened. A letter saying you were running away to marry a stranger. Hardly a rational decision. It was the most rational decision of my life. Mara gestured to Caleb and Ruby, who joined her. This is my husband, Caleb Rohr, and this is my daughter, Ruby, my family, your daughter. Theodore's laugh was ugly. You have been here, what, 6 months, and you are playing house with a cowboy and his brat. Caleb stepped forward, his face dark with anger, but Mara put a hand on his arm. This is my fight, she turned back to Theodore, and her voice carried across the street where people had gathered to watch. You do not get to come here and insult my family. You do not get to spread lies about me. I never agreed to marry you, Theodore. I refused you twice. You could not accept that. So you tried to force my hand through manipulation and threats. I left St. Louis to escape that. Mara's voice rang clear across the dusty street. That stranger rode through the desert to find me when I was dying. He nursed me through fever. He married me when I could not walk. He gave me a home and a daughter and a purpose. She stepped closer to Theodore, her eyes blazing. You never asked what I wanted, Theodore. You assumed I would fall in line because that is what women do in your world. But I did not. I chose differently. And that choice was mine to make, not yours. Theodore's face flushed with anger and humiliation. Around them, townspeople watched with obvious approval. Mrs. Chen was nodding. Gertrude Vale had tears in her eyes. You will regret this, Theodore said coldly. Living in poverty with a rancher, raising his child. You could have had everything in St. Louis. I have everything here. Mara reached for Caleb's hand, then Ruby's. Everything that matters anyway. Go home, Theodore. Tell my father I am happy. Tell my stepmother I am exactly where I want to be. And tell yourself whatever story you need to make sense of a woman who dared to say no to you. Theodore stared at her for a long moment, then turned and stalked into the hotel. The crowd burst into spontaneous applause. That was the most magnificent thing I have ever seen, Gertrude said, appearing at Mara's elbow. The way you stood up to him, the way you claimed your choices. Magnificent. I was terrified, Mara admitted, her legs suddenly shaking. Courage and fear are not opposites, dear. They are companions. You were both terrified and brave. That is the best kind of courage. That evening, back at the ranch, Mara sat on the porch with Caleb while Ruby played with a kitten they had finally acquired. Do you think he will leave? She asked. By morning, if he is smart. He made a fool of himself today, and this town will not tolerate him bothering you again. Caleb pulled her close. You were incredible, by the way. The way you stood there and told him exactly who you are, who we are. I could not have done it without you beside me, without knowing Ruby was there. She rested her head on his shoulder. That is the thing I think. Before, in St. Louis, I was alone, but here I am not. I have people who choose me back. You do. You always will. Caleb, I need to tell you both something. She touched her stomach gently. I think I am fairly certain. I am pregnant. Caleb went very still. Are you sure? As sure as I can be without Doc Harrison confirming it. Ruby abandoned her kitten and climbed into Mara's lap. A baby. I am going to have a brother or sister, if everything goes well. Ruby threw her arms around Mara's neck. A baby mama. That is the best thing ever. Caleb's eyes were wet, his face a mixture of joy and fear. Sarah died having Ruby. What if, I know you are scared. I am scared too, she cupped his face in her hands. But I am not Sarah. My body is different, and I will be careful. We will be careful together. Together, he repeated, then kissed her, deep and desperate and full of everything he could not say. When they pulled apart, he was smiling through tears. A baby. We are having a baby. We are. Standing together on the ridge behind the ranch weeks later, watching the sun set over the land that was now truly theirs. Caleb took Mara's hand and said what they were both thinking. We made it. We did. Mara agreed, her other hand resting on the slight swell of her belly where new life grew. Against all odds. We made it. Ruby ran ahead of them, chasing butterflies through the wildflowers, her laughter carrying on the wind. Below them, the ranch spread out like a promise kept. And in that moment, standing together with their future unfolding before them, Mara knew with absolute certainty that every painful step of the journey had been worth it. She had been found, she had chosen to stay, and she had built a life more beautiful than any she could have imagined in those desperate hours trapped beneath the wagon wreckage. This was home. This was family. This was love. And it was enough. More than enough.